go ahead. So just give me a second here.
No rush.
Okay. And you are live.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the February 5th, 2025 Parks Board meeting. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Call to order. Let's see, present, Alan Hobbs, Christina Carr, myself, Tim Pike, Gail Partain, Doug McKinney, and Town Engineer John Strong. Niles, and I will never get your name right, is on the internet. All right. So, any announcements? Anyone have an announcement they want to? Okay. Citizens' comments on the agenda. Seeing no citizens, I'll assume there's no comments on the agenda. Approval of minutes. The January 8th meeting minutes. They were in our packet. Everyone get a chance to look at them? They're right in the back of your agenda. I looked at them. Anyone have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
January
Second.
Doug, second. Okay. All in favor?
8th. Aye.
Aye.
Is that, that's 5, 0, 0?
2, 3, 4.
Yeah. I just counted.
Take my shoes off.
Last time I didn't count myself.
Old and tired.
5, 0, 0. Okay. All right. New business. Niles, the FY26 budget discussion.
Yep.
So you gave us a good detailed list.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the memo I sent around, I sort of went over it, and so I'm going to sort of briefly touch on that. Also in the packet, I included the actual budget pages. Those are the pages from the FY25 budget, because the FY26 budget has not yet been released, and that won't be until April. The commissioners are going to have a budget work session coming up in March, and we also, as a note that has already been put out there, is that we've already talked about a water rate increase that doesn't affect the Parks Board. That's something that we discussed at the last commissioners meeting. Alan can talk about more of that during his update. But just to set a little bit of groundwork of where we are in the budget process. Okay. So overall, I sort of broke down everything into kind of 3.5 sort of different things. So first thing to note is where we sort of are on the park project. So this is stuff that is either currently underway or is about to start. So the Helmhouse bathroom replacement has been completed. The electronic sign was replaced in front of Wayland Commons. The skate park expansion is completely done. Wow. The grading and reseeding of Dale Park. Now there is some more work, I believe, John, if you can correct me, in the spring on that one.
That's correct.
To do the final sort of grading there.
Right.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why are we grading and reseeding it? Why isn't the builder?
Dale Park is not part of the.
Okay. I thought it, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Then the installation of the flashing signs on West Wheeler near the high school. We'll talk about more about flashing signs a little bit later. The purchase of a new bucket truck. We actually just got it delivered today, early this morning. So that will help with a lot of what we do with the holiday lighting and things like that, where we utilize that. And then the resurfacing of pickleball courts at Stevens Park, lining and painting this fall, or summer, fall. I think we still have to work it out with the seniors. They were going to do it, and I don't think we have a firm date on when that's going to happen, but that's just sort of the brief schedule there. Any questions on so far what we have done?
Skate park expansion. We gonna have a grand opening or anything, or?
We can look into that.
Okay.
We have not discussed it, but if you guys want to do that,
We can talk about that next month. That's good.
All right.
All right.
That sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm noting that. All right, any other questions?
Nope. I don't have any. You guys have any?
All right. Then future projects in FY25 and FY26. So as I noted, this is stuff that has already been budgeted for. So the first thing is the rewiring of Wayland Commons. John and I were talking about this earlier this week. We're about to get into the process of issuing an RFP to do the electrical work. So this will allow us to better handle all the events that have grown and allow us to better manage our electrical resources on Whalen Commons and such. Did you have a question on that?
Nope.
No, okay. Then the installation of flashing signs on Cattail Road near the elementary school. Alan will talk about this later. Resurfacing of Stevens Park basketball court. So that is something that, again, we have completed most of the work for. There is some more relining and things like that that needs to happen there. So that's, I put it in this section because it is budgeted for to do some of that stuff. Then installation of a new West Willard sidewalk. We are targeting April for that, around the spring break of the high school, to get that installed. So we're working on that. Then the Helmos Park AED, we have one in Stevens Park. We have one here at Town Hall. And we actually have now, we recently purchased one and added one at the wastewater treatment plant. So we are trying to sort of make that as something we're doing all around. And then Preston is working on a storage area for our salt and gravel and things like that in the back part of the plant there to better utilize our space. This will allow us for better parking arrangements and better ingress egress for our trucks when they have to do the various work that they have to do. And then FY26 paving program, the town paves roads based on a 20-year life cycle. So that is already set in sort of in stone. You'll see that in the actual budget pages, how that works out. Any questions on what has already been budgeted for?
Helmets Park AED, why is it $10,000?
So we have to set, so one is purchasing the AEDs, and they are not cheap, actually. They're, I want to say they're in the range of around $5,000. And then two, for the outdoor ones, you have to get a box that is weatherproof, for lack of a better word, and then you have to connect that to the 911 system. So actually, if there's an emergency at Stevens Park,
Right.
you call 911, they give you the code, and then it accesses it, and as soon as you access it, that also sends a response to 911. So either way, so in other words, if somebody already had the code, right, could punch it and get it, by removing the AED from that box, it automatically alerts 911. So part of the cost with that is ensuring all of that happens. So it's not just purchasing the AED. With the parks, it's a little bit more complicated.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on that?
Yeah. How are we going to prevent the AED from vandalism?
So the boxes are pretty sturdy. They're really hard to get into. We haven't had a problem with the one at Stevens Park, and it's been there almost a year now. I think we have a good system of the technology that they have and the sturdiness of the boxes, because they're really heavy duty. It's not like the box in Town Hall.
Okay.
All right. And then moving on, so projects to be funded in the FY26 budget. The first one is the dog park. We've talked a little bit about this, moving it to Stevens Park. When the original dog park was constructed, it was about $75,000 to do. So we're conservatively budgeting $100,000 for dog park at Stevens Park. John and I have had further direct discussions about where to put the dog park physically on the grounds. And so, John, do you want to just briefly touch on what we talked about this afternoon?
Sure. There was a location. It's right in back of as you go past the restrooms. There's a kind of a triangular piece that's elevated. We can't put it against the slope of the pond because it's an interesting configuration of the pond. The overflow goes out towards the top of the pond, and then it circulates down along a swale that's in there, and that swale stays constantly wet, which wouldn't be acceptable for a dog area. And then there's the other area that's a possibility, which is along the trail. But I think the triangular area is probably the better suited for it.
So we'll be coming out in the next month or two. We'll have a more detailed look at about what that's going to look like and such. But I just wanted to give you a sense of where we're moving forward on it, but also where we are with the budget, since those two things sort of combine with each other.
Okay.
Now, is that a 2025 or 26?
So that's going to be it's going to be in the FY26 budget. We're determining now whether it's going to be over this year or next year. So we might put in 50,000 towards that total this year, then 50,000 towards it in FY27, and do it that way, because partially we have a little bit of wiggle room in terms of, one, the overall budget, which I'm not going to get into right now, and then two, where we are with the community center and how the community center, and we'll talk about the community center in a second, but how the community center fits into this timeline. So we have a little bit of time before they start construction. So it might be, from a budgetary perspective, easier to play that out over 26 and 27 so that we're ready to go before the whole process with the community center starts in FY28, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Would the county give us money to relocate the dog park?
I would say that's one we haven't asked them,
Yeah.
but I would say that's more unlikely. That's not in their scope.
Don't push
Again,
your luck, okay?
It's going to be, what they budgeted is $15 million for the design and engineering of the community center. And that's probably some of that money will probably end up being used towards the construction, but it's likely that the construction itself will also be in that $15 million range. So we're probably talking about $30 million to do it, right? So I would find it unlikely that they would help on this type of project, even though it's connected to it, but it's one of those things.
Thank you.
All right. And then the second item is what we talked about last month. So sidewalk repair, staff anticipates budgeting $25,000 towards the repair of the sidewalk on Spates Hill. That was identified as sort of the main issue. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't fix other issues as they arise elsewhere, but in terms of forward planning, as we've discussed as a body, that is something. Now, we also have a budget to replace or to add sidewalks. And so there's $75,000, I believe it is, in the budget to replace sidewalks, or to add new sidewalks, excuse me. That was my mistake there. So that is something which is that item 3 on page 10 of the packet. So that's where we're going to look at, obviously we're already doing the West Willard sidewalk. So when it comes to sort of what we can add, the idea is to utilize that budget line item towards where we want to add ones and where we want to see after, because the what's going to be paid this year and what we're going to do this year is one side of West Willard. The next goal, along with some other things related to what the Planning Commission is doing, is to do that other side of West Willard too. So it will have two sides, which was per your guys' conversation about having two sides of sidewalks near the schools. So it's trying to fulfill that obligation. But that's sort of what we're thinking about now, and then after that we can decide where else you want to add sidewalks as time goes on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. And then so you'll notice on, I will pull the page up for this. Okay. This is 11 of your packet. So we talk about, so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is this question about what we do with Bouldering Park. So there was a discussion before the community center really became a true reality of putting the Bouldering Park in Dillingham Park, potentially. that is still, it's budgeted in, to do the bouldering park in the out years. As you can see, we're already saving money towards the bouldering park, but that's in the out years as we get further down this budget. The question that I wanted to kind of bring to your guys' attention, though, is it's unlikely with everything, we don't have a set plan for the community center yet. We're still, again, that's what that FY28 design timeline is going to sort of fill in some of the gaps. But I would say that it's unlikely that the community center configuration will allow us to still have a bouldering park in Dillingham Park. Wouldn't you agree, John?
It would be probably tough.
Tight.
Yeah. And so, therefore, it's looking at what alternatives we could do for that, knowing that it is a project further out. So it less affects directly our budget planning right now, because we'd already put it in the out years of the budget. But it's more about having you guys, and you don't have to make a decision tonight or whatever, but about how we want to treat this project going forward, and looking at alternatives and all of those type of things. So part of this was getting your feedback on that.
How big was the park approximately? 50 by 50 or 100 by 50?
I don't remember. It was basically the center island area.
Okay.
So,
So we talked today, Miles, maybe through some Campbell or Elgin, but we're up for, we don't have to decide tonight, but.
Right, we don't have to decide tonight. And we could also decide to do a bouldering park that might be smaller or something in a different configuration. I mean, we hadn't gotten to that design element either with this.
there was no design
Right.
specified as of yet.
So in thinking about what we want to do, I know there was some talk about having it for different skill levels. So having a section for kids, basically, and then older adults or older kids and adults. So that's something just to consider as we move forward. But since it has budget questions attached to it, not right now, but in the future, I thought it was worth bringing up as part of this discussion.
Okay, we can plan to talk about that down the road, where to put it.
All right.
Everyone, keep your eyes open and you can bring the ideas here.
Good. So that was sort of the big question I had. Does anybody have any other questions related to what I put in the memo, or anything else related to the budget at this point?
No, it was very thorough. Thank you.
It also helps if you, the commission's overview of the budget in that was pretty well thought out and made sense.
Yeah, and as I said, we'll have more specifically on how the budget is going to look like for this year, as I said, in about a month and a half to 2 months. And so then you, like everybody else in the community, will be able to see that. We can, there's further conversations to be had. We can do it at that time as well.
Yeah.
All right. Then that sort of concludes it, again, unless there's something else from my end.
No, usually Preston talks about what he needs.
Yep,
not
and
here.
we
I missed
have already had discussions on that front. I suppose I should touch on that a little bit. Preston, there's no direct request, for example, of more staff for this coming year.
Good.
We did have a discussion at the commissioners' meeting on Monday. Again, Alan can report out on this about staff salaries and things like that. So that's an ongoing discussion. There's no decision that has been made there. Preston also, as I said, one of his focuses is the storage area. Another thing that we've discussed in terms of operational budget changes, which I didn't go into here as much because it's more day to day, is about the tree budget. That's one of the things that we're looking at potentially increasing, both due to the droughts that we've had in the previous year and just the overall impact. John had to have a tree removed because of interference with a sewer line. So there's things like that we have to accommodate from a budget perspective. And then, of course, this year with the snow, we've spent more on the snow budget. We're still as of right now, we're still in the snow budget for this year. But that might be something that we'll have to look at. That's an item that pretty much stays constant because some years you don't spend any of it at all. Next year you might spend all of it. So that's one that we usually keep in that it's about $50,000 a year in case of snow removal expenses. But so far we've been pretty good, even despite the snow. We're pretty good on that budget. So I'd put that in for you guys. I'm trying to think. There's obviously we talked about the bucket truck. He's also going to rebuild the ball field dragger and a couple of other equipment things that we're looking at. He bought a salt spreader to put on the 4x4, basically, his little 4x4 thing to help with salting sidewalks and things like that, to make that a little bit more efficient than sort of previous years. So we're all are at the same time looking at ways of improving overall the Parks and Streets' ability to respond to their responsibilities.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay. John?
Good.
Very good. Okay, thanks, Niles. Very good, very informative. All right, next, any old business we want to bring up? Hearing none, we'll go on to the next item. Okay, Superintendent of Parks and Streets report. We have to wait for Preston?
Yeah, so we could just touch on the main things that the guys have been doing. They've, one, they're preparing for inclement weather again. They're going to put on, today they were putting on salt spreaders and the plows and everything. They've also been removing the holiday lights, and they're going to, at some point, change back over the lights from colored to white, as we do in the not holiday season. And we're looking actually at some changes to how that works to make it less labor intensive. Well, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that, Alan.
Oops, sorry, that'll help. I said not singly, one by one on the lights.
Exactly. We're looking at, so that Bryce doesn't have to get up in the new bucket truck and do it all by hand. But we're looking at potentially upgrading those lights at some point, so that they're multicolored, so that you can just basically press a button and they're switched. So things like that.
Can we, I'd like to do the traditional incandescent light. Or LEDs. That's just me, though. That's a
Years
personal
ago,
request.
years ago.
Look, I'll
There
get
you
up
go.
in the bucket truck. It's okay.
Just
We
as
can
a
get you up
side
there.
note, with the new construction coming on and the demolition that's going to be taking place, some of the alignment of the lights are going to change too.
Yep.
Yep, which is why we're looking at redoing the lights, because we'll have to redo them anyways. So it all is a good opportunity, because we'll have to take them down and do all of that stuff. So those two things are tied together, because was it 4 poles or 3 poles?
4.
4. It's 4 poles that are going to go away on Fisher Avenue. It's the ones closer to Town Hall here, actually. So it's, right next to us. And so I think I don't know if you have anything else to add, John, but that sort of is where we are with Parks and Streets at the moment.
No, the parks are up and running as winter is.
Yep.
The skate park, by the way, we can have a grand opening, but
Did they know it?
they're in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hopefully
they're
adults
all
know.
over it.
Yeah. I think from their perspective, they're very happy from what I understand.
It's
So,
packed. Yeah, go over there. I back up a little bit. The street lights on 107, are those turned off because of the holiday lights? It's very dark
some
when
of
I walk in the night.
Okay, so let me look into some of that. Okay, so some of that is, we've had issues with Potomac Edison getting out here to fix their lights. 'Cause
Ongoing.
they do a lot of the ones on 107 and 109.
Okay.
And Cattail, actually, I've tried to get them out here. So we're going to do reinforcing the need, some of these needs to get them out here to do that. And hopefully we can get that taken care of in the next month or so.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Commissioner Hobbs.
I'm going to be redundant on some of these things since
Okay.
Niles and Tim have already shared some. But anyhow, first and foremost, obviously I shared all the reports from the Trails Working Group last week and the brick and property approvals of the forest conservation and the gym equipment with the commissioners. Everybody's, in line with that. The one thing I know that we've run into the last really 2 weeks is all the water main breaks. And I just want to commend, Preston and the staff for jumping on that. Long hours, sleepless hours, and, it just never goes, you can't say it enough. The 18, 20-hour days trying to get everybody back up for some water. Let's see, what else did I have? We were talking about, you mentioned the commissioners the other night approved the crossing light at PES at the speed bump due to some issues just with traffic and people. Actually, if I remember correctly, somebody actually got bumped or hit.
Almost hit. It was the volunteer who helps with the traffic control
Yes.
there. So that sort of led to some urgency. So John and I went out there and observed one afternoon the flow around there, and we have larger suggestions that the school system itself will need to look at. But right now, what we felt was a good request and a good solution for now was adding those flashing lights there, just to give another reminder that people will cross there and that people should be aware of their speed in that area.
And I noticed the other day coming through Cattail, right at that speed bump, there's always a black SUV or Suburban's parked there, right at the speed bump. So if we actually place a crossing light there, that car cannot park there because you'll never see it on the right-hand side of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that might be the volunteer's car just to, pop
Yeah.
out. But again,
We'd have to move the sign,
yes,
no parking there.
yeah. So I don't know if there's I know there's no parking there, but people.
There is no parking on the school side of the street there.
Correct.
That's the other thing that we were discussing is how do we, because we also don't want to limit the parents' ability to pick up their children
correct.
on that side. So it's possible that we do something like a sort of a zone near that crosswalk to try to reinforce, that we don't want to obstruct that area, especially because you have little kids who are crossing there who are not as easy to see, especially with
Yeah,
some
and then, and
bigger
plus we
vehicles.
have our Wooten Avenue, no parking, and that's,
Yeah.
that's going to have some effect on that. Then eventually, looking forward, once we start the streetscape program, all the construction going there, so we're going to have to just be proactive, not reactive on how we, adjust the, go ahead, Tim. I know.
Yeah.
No, that crosswalk is going to be closer to 107 or by the driveway?
It'll be our thought was by the driveway.
Okay.
Because that's where because of the nature of the parking, of the way people park, people cross, people are engaging near that crosswalk
It gets busy
is
there.
more of the issue than up at Fisher, because the traffic on Fisher really stops people from driving as much. That was my understanding. Do you agree, John?
Correct.
Yep.
So that was a pretty quick decision for us to make and go on forward. So, obviously, Niles had mentioned the water increase rates. That's kind of TBD. The commissioners have our budget meeting in March, third week of March. That's going to be pretty extensive for FY '26. And then, as again Niles mentioned, we'll have those findings and numbers in April sometime. So we'll expedite as much as possible. We got to make sure what we have coming and what we have. So obviously, there's a lot of outstanding questions coming through, the state and grants and so on and so forth. So
And we'll get more of those revenue numbers by the middle of February. So in terms of our budget process, it's easier for us to project right now costs than revenue. But by the end of the month, we get in those revenue projections that allow us to complete the budget so that we can present it to the commissioners.
yep.
You have a question here.
With respect to the valves and the pumps and all that, excuse me, we're able to identify what the issue was or what the cause was, right?
For,
For a valve failure.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and most of the time, it's pretty straightforward what the issue is. I mean, we usually have, for water main breaks and things like that, we have older infrastructure, especially in the areas that are affected. Some of it is sitting on rock, which exacerbates the ability of our guys to get on it, but also for it to exacerbate the friction that happens on the pipe. So we know usually what happens. We had at the corner of Cattail and Dr. Walling, where we had a hydrant valve that failed. There, the bolts had disintegrated, basically. So we can identify what the issue is, and that allows us to project where there will be similar issues. In fact, the guys have what are called correlators now, where they can set those up, and they will sense where there is a leak down to a few feet. In the case of the water main break on Loon, it literally where the correlator said it was the edge of the hole that they dug. So we're talking about just a few feet between, that kind of thing. So we've gotten a lot better at detecting the leaks. Some of this has been in the case on Wooten Avenue where there was a leak. The correlators detected right when the leak started. So this allowed us to really pinpoint it even before it was necessarily surfacing. Now, by the time we got to it, it had surfaced, so people called about it. But we are getting to the point where we're better at detecting and being aggressive, really, in looking at the evidence that we see from the pumps and everything to tell us what's going on. So we're doing a pretty good job of being more proactive in our approach to the leaks and everything like that. And on the other side note is we do have a grant to do a whole water line replacement in Westerly that we're working through, and we have deadlines associated with that coming up. But we're working diligently on that as well.
So just to comment, only about half of us here will remember a point in time where we were struggling with how to get valves here, how to understand what the failure is, redoing them. And that was the county's MPS something or other. It was a valve. In any event, I'd like to say that the crews on our work projects
They do a good job.
do a good job. And, and that's 10 years ago. We were talking about this as in the future.
Right, and the
Now
future's
we're talking
here.
about it and saying,
Right.
oh yeah, we're going to dig that and make it, 2 inches from the pipe or whatever. I mean, that would.
Well, I remember 5 or 6, 7 years ago, I guess I don't remember if it's 5, 6, 7 years ago. We talked about that engineering app or something, we can find out where all the pipes are, John?
We're doing the GIS
Yeah.
right
Yeah, yes, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
And we have already, the maps that we used for the Trails Working Group last month came from the GIS system.
Right, okay.
So we are cataloging all of our infrastructure
Good.
in various different ways through that. And I'm working on some further refinement in additions to the GIS to make sure that we are capturing things like the water lines, like the new water line we put in on Cohos. It's another of the things that we are going to be adding into that system. So they'll have a better sense of where those things are than what we previously had. So that's another sort of weapon in our arsenal of being able to save some time and some effort on some of these things.
One of the things that, and it happens in a lot. It happened in a lot of older systems. It's great when everybody's working here and remembering everything, right?
Yep.
Well, then they leave, and then it's lost.
Charlie Elgin knew
Well,
everything.
Yeah.
He knew where every pipe was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of developing the as-builts now. Especially all the new subdivisions get as-builts done. All the new work that we're doing that we did on Cohos, those have as-builts that are incorporated.
This place go over here and.
Yeah. So everything will have an as-built with it. the high school is going to have an as-built with it. And once that data is all, we can translate it over to GIS, but it's still, GIS will get you within 5-10 feet. Okay, it's a lot better than we were. But if you also we have a digital basis of all the as-bills that we're capturing with all the plans. So now we can go to that digital base and actually look at the plans and see what we have. Niles, I don't know if it's on a server or if it's in the cloud, but it'll be available for eternity now.
Yeah, it's going to be a combination system. So we're going to have a cloud. We have a cloud base, but also a physical server that's actually in the room next to you guys that helps preserve those digital files. And so that's how we are sort of working through to preserve all of this, to preserve this knowledge, and to make it more accessible. So now, like for the GIS, there's an app that's on the water phone, so that the guys can actually mark things like when they're exercising valves or inspecting hydrants or whatever. They can mark whatever they see. Oh, this is where this happened. This is one of the things Ricky is doing over the next week or so is cataloging some of the valves that are reverse valves. So they go the opposite way to open or close than what is typical. So we are marking those to make sure that then people can say, hey, let's look at the information. Oh, it's a reverse valve. We can do that. So that those type of things.
Very cool.
This utility's going to be out of a job.
No.
No, I know.
I appreciate all the cataloging and the recording, because that's huge.
That's really
Yeah.
All right, take it away. Sorry, we interrupted.
That's okay. So, and then, let's see, go back to the liaison report. Tara actually presented an increased budget for some of the events for this year, or 2025. And then also what Niles had mentioned, the town's kind of taken over the Scarecrow Contest responsibility. So that's going to increase some cost with the electric that Niles was mentioning.
Yeah.
So, just small things, but it's noted, and the presentation was great. And like I said, we have got some numbers on, people. Every year it seems like we're getting more and more patrons to come to our events at the Commons, so that's good. Niles again touched on the staff salary increase possibilities. Again, that's a budget thing that we have to, start talking about in March. Obviously the guys got to be comparable with other municipalities. Even though we have smaller population, we still got to retain our employees as much as possible, so.
Agree.
Then on a personal note, I usually walk in my neighborhood of Hunters Run. Many people, Niles knows this as well, I had many people, literally 5 people probably in a 20-minute walk stop me and ask me about cleaning the sidewalks. There's a few like ice on the sidewalks.
Oh, yeah.
So there's some safety issues on a couple of them. But I don't know this season's kind of done. I say that now, it's going to ice tonight.
Wait a couple
But maybe next year send out something in, October or something like that and say, hey, guys, just make sure this is the policy on, cleaning and the codes. And look, I shoveled plenty. I have shoveled neighbors. I shoveled older people's sidewalks, because it's a lot. Actually, Doug's wife, I helped because there was so much ice there, and that's okay. It was give your neighbor a hand.
I
So
appreciate,
Do we have
I appreciate that a lot.
I mean,
Big difference.
on 107 down by, that side of town,
Yeah.
people shoveled about a 1.5 foot sidewalk. Try to walk through there with a dog at night when it's dark
Yeah.
and icy.
Well,
Is there a thing of, you gotta do at least 3 feet or 4 feet of the whole
Yeah.
sidewalk?
I thought it
Well,
was
the
bad.
code specifies that you have to create a path that a pedestrian can pass through.
All right, so what define path, right?
Right.
16
And
inches
so,
of a 4-foot
so
sidewalk.
that might be
I get it.
that might be from a code perspective, something that we look at in the future about how we want to define that, but that's what it says.
Yeah.
And so we've tried to, Alan was mentioning somebody in his neighborhood. there we had to have a conversation, about their responsibility in terms of being a homeowner and the sidewalks there. And if you can't because you're elderly or disabled, that's a different story, and that's addressed in the code. But the way the code is written is encouraging, property owners or homeowners or whatever to address that. And so we tried to. I did send out a message right before the first storm. I think Alan's idea of pushing that out even earlier in the season, I think, is a good one. And then sending out reminders throughout the season of just the potential for what could happen and how we can address that.
And look, it's really a protection on the homeowner. I mean, if the amount of walkers in my neighborhood and that one little bit of ice, it's either there's plenty of kids in my neighborhood. You can ask your next door neighbor, kid to do, or, flag me down. I mean, like I said, I have no problem being active.
What's your number?
But it's really, so it's better, it's other than you're having somebody break a hip,
Yeah.
have some kind of, injury, and then it's back on them. But it's just something that was noted and it was taken care of. Also, Niles and I've talked about this because I had a street lamp out right by my driveway, but it was a sensor, it wasn't a light. But again, I'm just cognizant of the fact, because I lived on a corner property in Hunter's Run, and I get traffic all the time by the middle school. And I have neighbors that always pop by and they see me outside and they're like, hey, how about, I'm like, just document the light. You can go online. It's a very simple process. Or send me a text and, I'll send it to, I'll send my own report back in. It doesn't matter. But again, just, it's just little subtle things that, the residents just got to be, have some accountability and responsibility. It's not that hard to do a 3-minute, inquiry or, an ordinance.
And we appreciate that input. I mean, the guys try to do various times where they go out and try to find lights that are out, but sometimes there was ones the other day that we were looking at that were flickering on and off. So if you were out and it looked like it was on, like when the guys were checking, they're not necessarily going to see that. But the residents who are out and walking every day are going to see, hey, this is an issue. Can we reach out about it? And we encourage that. We encourage the residents to report it.
Right, and it's not about accumulating, fine, $50 fine or $75 fine or whatever it is. It's just about just being cautious and looking out for the residents in Poolesville. So, like I said, there's plenty of people. I mean, even if they, wanted to pay again, the Poolesville wrestling team kids shoveled a lot of driveways, and it wasn't mandatory, but some, residents gave a donation to the Booster Club. It's something about giving back, but it's, when residents shovel their own sidewalks, or most of their sidewalks in their driveway, they can shovel the last 60 feet, in my opinion, but.
How are those people identified, by the wrestling team? Like, how do they know which houses to go to?
You know what, I think most of them were either, because I'm also vice president of the Booster Club, but either I get a text, or another Booster Club member, or Facebook. Obviously, the town page is pretty visible, transparent with, passive aggressive sometimes.
And we had people reach out to town hall and we could direct them to the wrestling team. So that happened in a couple of cases as well as a potential solution to that.
But yeah, I mean, it's just, it's just small things. But other than that, that's my report, and, we'll have substantial more information once we get our budgets done in March and hopefully move into spring. So,
Okay.
that's what I have.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Let's see, before we adjourn, usually every spring we tour one or two parks. Maybe April, May, we could do, I don't think we've been to Stevens in a while. And maybe we could see Halmos, what's been done over there too. That'll be a quick. Any other parks you guys think about, or Gail, Christina, you want to look at? We try to do a couple every year.
Yeah. So we can put that. So you're saying April, May for that?
Yeah, April, May, we could do it an hour before this meeting or something. Daylight savings kicks in March. April, May, do it April, May.
Yeah.
Stevens, then we can look where the dog park could be.
Oh, yeah.
Correct, I like
Yep.
that idea.
Ron could stake it
And-
out, no, I'm kidding.
Well, at least by that point, we'll have more firm ideas of what we're looking at there too. So that can help fill in the gaps for it.
Right, we can look at the AED out there. And that'll be a good one. And then we can just go by Halmos and look at the comfort station.
Yep.
Now, is an AED required for every park?
It is not required. We are actually the first
course we are.
municipality in the county to install them at parks like this. And we actually, part of the task of getting these set up is we had to set it up with the fire department to get this whole hotline.
It's
system
pretty cool.
Worked
I
out.
mean, it's a
Yeah.
pretty cool thing they did.
Jeff,
We can
So-
talk about that after the adjournment.
No, I'm also CPR certified, so I know my certification's up in April, so I'll be back with,
And
my
we do,
recertification.
and for Alan, just so you know, we, for the camp, for the summer camp that we do, we get all of them CPR certified. So we do certification at Town Hall.
Perfect.
So that's something that you want to do on that. We could work that out too.
Always. And I know I have plenty of people that have inquired about it, so.
is that open to the public?
Well, the fire
Just,
department's doing it,
Oh, the fire department.
but they're
The
charging.
fire department does
Evidently,
it.
they have to charge now. Sorry, no, go ahead. I cut you off.
We were able to get it done just for staff is what
Okay.
we've done previously, but we've also in the past, I want to say it was like 2 years ago, maybe longer ago, we did one where we hosted one at Town Hall, I think.
Right.
Do you remember that, John? I think it
That's
was like,
Yeah. I should
Yeah.
get my instructor badge again. I can instruct it for you guys.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's $65 if you go through the fire
Yeah,
department.
they charge for the cards now. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
they do.
Yeah,
Not that you, I mean,
right.
the
The emailed card they give you, that you have to print out.
Yeah.
Well, I have to do it every year, so yeah,
Thanks, guys.
all that stuff. Okay, so why don't we set something up? Maybe next meeting we'll talk about getting out there in April, May.
Yep.
Okay.
No, that's perfect. Mhm.
Yeah, just a quick tour.
Yeah.
It's beneficial. Everyone sees what's going on. All right. I don't have any. Gail, you have anything? John? Doug?
Anybody got anything for the commissioners, or?
No, I don't
Not
think so. I,
We can come back to you if you want.
yeah, I do have something to say, but I want to make sure everybody else is done too.
You have anything?
I'm good.
So
Anything for the commissioners?
I guess the only comment I have is, and since I've been shoveling the length of my property for 25 years, I think that we all got to remember that just because so-and-so can do it or should do it doesn't necessarily mean they have the capability of doing it.
Correct.
Mhm.
Which is what happened in my instance.
Give me a call. I got a snow blower and a plow. I'll take care of it.
And
Problem
that's-
was that it would have been great, but this one, like many, not all, snow, wet rain, melted snow, next morning ice. And that's where you
Yeah.
get your ice when you're
Yeah.
walking. Now, in that instance, I would say, well, yeah, I'm assuming that you are considerate, or you weighed all your, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, people need to make sure that they are taking their own care on their own. I can't think of the words right now.
Well, I walked the other night, and there's still ice down on the west end of 107.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you don't get the sun,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know?
And that's the type of stuff. But just to
Yeah.
piggyback on what Doug
It's not
was
their
saying,
fault. Yeah, it's
as I said earlier, if you don't have the capability to do it on your own, obviously you can reach out to the various people we've talked about. There is a process if you need to reach out to the town about it. But we'd encourage people to do, the wrestling club and things like that. But if you really are incapable, or if you, physical limitations, that's something we can discuss as well.
And like Doug was mentioning, I mean, our sidewalks, we live in the same neighborhood, our sidewalks, walkers are, even when it snowed the first time, I mean, I'm a 4:30 a.m., 5 o'clock a.m. guy, I'm outside, and there was already footprints and dog prints
Yeah.
on the sidewalk. So they start when it was still snowing.
Yeah.
And then it just packs down, packs down, packs down, and the way the sun hits my house, I get nothing on the front until then it was like 4:30, it was sun setting. So I get like 30 minutes of sun where it was, but again, I have the icebreakers and, everything
Yeah.
else to break. But again, like Tim was mentioning, I mean, I have my snow blower, and that's good for the first path, but,
Yeah.
if you don't stay on top of it, it just accumulates and it's unfortunate. But again, we have enough resources in town and enough good people. And look, there's even kids through the school that need SSL hours and they'll do it, I mean, it's something that we can outsource it, with certain individuals, the elderly, the handicapped people, it happens.
Maybe we
And
can
it's,
start a
Yeah.
shovelers list.
right.
Honestly,
No, a
I
shot-
have a neighbor who's like
available.
desperate to use his plow. He's
Right.
like, please let me use my plow. And he would love it. He has so many toys. If I told him which houses, he'd be like, yes.
I got nothing to do with it. I just
Right.
take
Yep.
off my snow blower and do the neighborhood.
Yeah, I love to shovel because I'm strange, so I would love it.
No, I'm the same way.
It's good exercise. I like to be outside.
Like even
Yeah.
though I had a snowblower for 20 years I've been here. I mean,
Use it 6 times.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. I mean, I like to go shovel every 3 inches, 4 inches.
Yeah, me too.
So
And then I go to the fire hydrants and I'm.
Does the
shoveling.
town own, I know they have equipment, but they own snow blowers?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not the dry
And
ones,
so-
but the push ones? The dry walk
I
ones?
believe they are push ones that we use.
The
because I think
walk-behinds?
that's what, yeah, I think that's what Charles and
Walk
Michael were
behind.
using.
The walk behind ones? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I know that on 107, when they clear it, that the plows come back and dump stuff on, and they get more snow than they, 6
Yeah.
inches of snow is 2 feet of snow on the side.
yeah. And so we were, but yeah, they were taking, there are places where we do the sidewalks for various reasons. It's our own property. There's a couple of other instances where we do that for access to the schools and things like that. So that's where we are doing some of that stuff ourselves as the town. But that's where we work through that process as well.
like an example, again, on the town page, Facebook page, I mean, the Gauntlet area up by the cleaners, there
Yep.
was snow on there, but I was going to John's for something. I had my shovel. It took me 3 minutes to literally clear the rest of that off so people could get back with, with the strollers and some other things. But again, as long as people would notify something, there should be somebody to be able to help out. Because reality, power, and numbers, I mean, if you have the wrestling team or any other youth or any of other capable people, it takes 2 or 3 people to knock the sidewalk out in minutes,
Yep.
not hours, so. But again, we were, not complaining, just, mentioning it per se.
Maybe next week we'll have a chance to do some more.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Monday, Tuesday.
Yep.
Bring on spring.
We'll see who's doing. How many?
4 to 8.
Oh, I think
What
you
do
said
you-
48. I was like,
Well, we can have a guys and gals club with shovels. We'll get together, shovel,
Yeah.
and have lunch after.
we'll come have hot chocolate here at the town hall.
That's the best you can do. Okay, I have nothing else. You guys have anything else?
I'm good.
I'm good.
John Strong? Nothing?
Adios.
Let's hear it.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
aye. 0-0, okay.
Maybe we'll
Thank you.
close this.
Thanks, Niles, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Of course, thank
You?
you.
Okay. Are we off?
Almost, just give me a second.
Yep, before I say anything.